Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Oh, Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey everybody, it's Francis. This is Collision Course. Welcome to another episode 6 of Season 2 of Collision Course here on Revolution Radio. Studio B, every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time in New York City. If you come to revolution.radio, click on Studio B to play from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time every Saturday night. You get an opportunity to listen to me discuss outer space. When I talk about outer space, I mean way outer space. I don't normally talk about the things that are here on the ground unless they affect things that are out in space, or unless something from outer space comes here to the ground. But we'll get into that in a minute. I just want to take a moment now to welcome everybody who's listening from the East Coast to the West Coast, from Canada to places down south. I want to welcome you. Stone, are you out there listening? Jessica, are you out there listening? John, are you out there listening? Jorge, John, Robin, Robert, Chris, Mark, Joe. I hope you're all doing very well. It was a beautiful day here in Texas outside of Houston. Beautiful day, beautiful fall day here in Houston. You don't get very many beautiful days like you do, like today was. And we were treated by a beautiful 80-degree weather, breezy kind of day, a nice day to go out and have breakfast. And that's what we did. But while we were doing that, we were thinking about outer space, and we were thinking about Collision Course and Revolution Radio and all of our listeners and what they may be interested in hearing about. Now, I do not have a single guest planned for tonight. It just happened to work out that way. For fortunate reasons or unfortunate reasons, some time constraints sometimes allow me to reach out to people in a professional manner, which is the only way I want to reach out to people, is in a professional way. I want to be sure that everyone has an opportunity, if they are from the professional academia circuit, to have a respectable interview being performed when they come on air. And that means that a lot of discussion has to occur right from the start, the first email to the actual showtime. Our first 3 weeks, we had 3 very interesting guests, Stephen Fusilier, Karen Meach, and Renu Mohatra. Tonight, we're going to take some of the information from one of those interviews with Karen Meach, who is involved with the interstellar traveler known as Oumuamua. And I know that I've talked about that in a few of these episodes, and we're going to continue talking about it because new information is still coming out about this object, and that means we're going to have to go over it and learn it and know that we know the reports and are on top of them when they come out, because we may get a report that we definitely don't want to be delayed in getting. And that is one of the reasons Collision Course is here, to be aware of the reports coming in from outer space and to come back and report to you on a weekly basis about those things. First, though, this is a space report, so we should report on some things that I am partially I really enjoy. The asteroids, the comets, the moving objects, the new discoveries all play an important part in an outer space report, or a report from outer space. Let's see if I can minimize that. We are going to look at 2 objects. There's 2 objects that are going to be passing their close approach to Earth November 4th at approximately 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Let me see if I can get to the list first. Those 2 objects on order to be passing by Earth on November 4th of 2018, very close to each other at 21:25 UT time, or CA time, which is Greenwich time, and that would be 2018 UY1. Passes by Earth, its close approach, November 4th, 2018, at 21:25 UT. That I placed at, because I'm -5 here, that if that is 21 is 9, so we're at 4:25 p.m. tomorrow afternoon for the for 2018 UI1, and then we have 2002 VE68. That flies by Earth November 4th at 21:44, so that would be 19 minutes later. 2002 VE68 makes its closest approach, 21:44 or 4:44 Central Time, 5:44 in New York. We'll look at their relative speeds, which are quite similar. They're both moving at relative speeds, one at 8.32, that's 2018 UI1, and the other at 8.63 relative kilometers per second for 2002 VE68. It just makes this conjunction with Earth. You have the two objects in Earth making a conjunction, similar speed, different size. 2018 UI1 has a estimated diameter of 40 to 90 meters, while 2002 VE68 has an estimated diameter of 210 meters to 470 meters. So a little different in size, but relative to their arrival at close approach to Earth, very, very close. When we talk about the lunar distances, for minimum lunar distances for their approach, 2018 UI1 comes in at 7.41 lunar distances at minimum, and then 2002 VE68 comes in at 14.65 minimum lunar distances. Okay, for for the one that comes closest to Earth, it will be 2,046,000 miles from Earth. And the other one will be 3,627,000 miles from Earth. So neither of these objects are coming within the lunar orbit. Now, NASA JPL NEO, if you go search that, NASA JPL NEO, you can maneuver through their pages and find great information like their orbital diagrams, which really lay out an easy explanation of what's occurring out there in space for these particular objects. I'm going to put them down, those being our close approach. I'm going to go over to what I've been following on Facebook. This is called the North Holt Branch Observatories. That'd be facebook.com/NB Observatories. Facebook.com/NB Observatories. And that should bring you to North Holt Branch Observatories. I've been following them because they've been making a lot of discoveries and tracking lots of these NEO objects. We'll go up. And just 13 hours ago, they made a report. A109 VAN, VAN, is an Apollo-type asteroid with a diameter of 210 to 480 meters. It was first observed on November 1st at Atlas-HKO Haleakala. A109 VAN made a close approach on October 27th at a distance of 0.14 or 20.7 million kilometers from Earth. It's now visible 18.3 mag and fading. That's one thing that the North Holt Branch Observatories does do, is they have their actual images that they took, their actual raw data, which really gives them the ability to show others what's going on out in space, because that's something that I fully support, that you can talk about outer space till blue in the face, but when the rubber needs to meet the street, you need to have a tool to go out into space and take pictures and images, because even though people say, oh, what's out there to take pictures of, besides the obvious beautiful sights, astrophotography, that there are objects to be discovered still and will be forever. One more from the North Holt Branch Observatory is the NEO confirmation page object BR4201, which we observed last night, has been designated 2018 VL, so they made another discovery. 2018 VL is an Apollo-type asteroid with a diameter of 8 to 20 meters. It was first observed at Atlas HKL Haleakala. See, so I don't know the perfect inner workings of how this goes, but I do know that telescopes that are set up to survey the sky take pictures. What doesn't occur is those telescopes being able to return to the humans what it is they saw when they were looking. So it takes a human, and up till now, to look at the pictures that we're taking, the frames, the images that were taken by the survey, and discern objects that move, objects that weren't there before, whatever it is they may be looking for, supernova. It could be whatever the universe can provide visually, or dependent on the filter that the telescope is looking through, whatever visuality the universe can give us, and a telescope is looking, the telescope will respond with a return of evidence. Now, the technology that large telescope facilities will be getting their hands on, or in another case, more like cloud computing, computers are in a whole new class. We have the user class that we're still using, that's not much different than the class of computers that the user end has been using for a long time. But we have classes of computers now that are in the upper echelon of computers that are only viable for certain processes. Something that involves artificial intelligence, algorithms, and the like, supercomputers, quantum computers, the computers that have infinite capabilities to compute. Those computers are on the cutting edge of technology for computing. Our son is taking up the task of learning as much as he can about the forward progress of computers like this, and he'll hopefully play a part when computers are really playing a part even more in our lives. Hopefully our son will be able to deliver great results in his field for what he does in computing. But when we go back to talking about these developing computers, these computers, you'll have a central computer, and the computer will be lent out, commercially used by third-party sources. So let's say we have a telescope observatory who produces mass amounts of data, and that's exactly what a telescope survey would do. We will return a massive amount of data. That data needs to be scoured through. Humans are having harder and harder time being able to keep up with it all, because technology is producing so much data that now this data will be brought to a computer that is at the leading edge of computing, possibly running on algorithms and artificial intelligence. And it's already come out, and articles have already been written, and papers have already been written that it's happening, that now artificial intelligence is being used to make more discoveries from pre-existing data, images, and current images, which will advance our ability to catch objects before they get to Earth rather than after, like the interstellar traveler Oumuamua, because if we remember, we didn't discover Oumuamua until after it was by us. Another interesting aspect, but we're going to get to that Oumuamua soon. So, developing technological computers used in collaboration with immense data stacks from observatories like the ones in Hawaii, and you get more results. So back to North Holt Branch Observatories. They are involving themselves in probably staying on top of the data as it comes out, and they will always be at the forefront of discoveries because they are at the forefront of the data output. If you can acquire the data first or be right there on the list, you're going to be at the forefront of discovery and from these types of observatories that are doing surveys on large portions of the sky. So I like North Holt Branch Observatories because I get a feeling like I'm staying on top of the newest objects, because it'll be the newest objects that we need to either enjoy as they pass by or be careful of as they pass by. Just to be aware is the first step. You have to be aware. Okay, so I'm gonna end that there. I think that's going to end the asteroid notices for this show. We're going to talk about Oumuamua, and I just wanted to make sure. I searched again today, Oumuamua, in YouTube. Whenever I'm researching, like most people that are like me, and I may not be like most people, but people like me will research things that they're interested in using Google search. We'll be using YouTube. We'll be using Twitter. We'll be using whatever it is they use. For me, I run the gamut of, I guess, the normal basic ones. I have outlets to information that come to me only when there's important information, which is good, because the rest of it is mass media, and you're really left up to your own devices to know whether it's viable or not. Now, I had to, and so I was searching Oumuamua, and I saw a clip of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, I know that they want us maybe to all fawn over Neil deGrasse Tyson like he's Carl Sagan, and they want us to imagine with Michio Kaku like he's an physics god. That when we hear these voices from science, and we know that whether it be astronomy or science or some other areas, there are token talking heads. Now, I don't want to disparage. I'm not disparaging anyone. It just, if you end up being the guy that's always talking, that catches all the questions and seems to have the final say, especially in this case on a nationally or global reach, that it's easy to be seen as a talking head. So, now, I had the occasion to have an opportunity to be in the discussion about this type of topics with Neil deGrasse Tyson and John Zascoda on John Zascoda's show, the Stranger Advice Show, or Stranger Advice. And while I may not remember exactly what we were talking about directly, because we covered a lot of topics, I do remember this one segment or this one item that he got that he had Neil deGrasse. We had asked him a question. He had given an answer. He had come to the end of his answer. He put a period on the sentence, and when he did, some thought came to mind, and I said, well, that rings a bell. And he said, I hope that's in your head. Ha ha, he he. Neil deGrasse Tyson made a funny on me. But so today, as I'm going back through Oumuamua, I see this clip of Neil deGrasse Tyson on the night show. Oh gosh. Is it Jon Stewart? No, it's this guy with the dark hair. Well, anyways, he was on one of the Tonight shows, one of the late night shows. And because I don't watch a late night show, and I don't care for one of the hosts, I'm not one, I don't care. So I can't think of his name. I'll probably vomit it out in a little bit. So he was on the show with the dude, and they were talking about Oumuamua. That was how the search came up. And Neil deGrasse Tyson got really sounded crazy. Like when a crazy person is in a sentence and then they raise their voice and it wasn't in any sort of way a serious discussion, which this kind of discussion really actually demands. He quickly resolved himself to making light of it all, while at the same time saying that it wasn't a spacecraft, and that even though it's really strange, it all fits in the universal package of what we can expect, and that to me means you're just lucky to be alive to witness this thing. So what I do for most of these researches, though, whether I go to the sometimes the actual content isn't the best content. Sometimes the best content is in the comments, and we all know that too. If you're like me, we know that as well. Sometimes the best content is in the comments. It's where the smart people are. Sometimes hang out because they're out there with no personal life, and they come on with their high IQs, and they are succinct and direct in their answers in the comments according to whatever the topic in the video or article may be. They come in, and you can learn a lot from the people who are making comments. That's why I may even comment once in a while, because it's important to leave good things behind for humanity. And so what I did, besides looking in the comments, I actually didn't look in the comments from this video because I didn't really care for the video. I didn't care for the way they approached the topic at all, because there was a little mystery involved, and if you can't enjoy a little mystery, then there's something wrong with you, I think. So I listened to the clip for whatever amount of time, and then what I did is I stopped, I went and did something else, and I came back and I listened to it again, because what I did for this piece of information is I listened to something else that Neil deGrasse Tyson said that had nothing to do with Oumuamua, and of course there always is. So at the end of this little clip, he quoted a gentleman that I'm going to have to go in here, and I'm going to quote this because there's nothing really strange about it, but it's almost like a beckoning. It's a beckoning. And I probably won't be able to get the actual quote. The quote was from a gentleman named, no, that's not him. That is not him. I almost said something totally wrong. And though that's probably happened to me before, I don't want that to happen to me again. Okay, here it is. The quote is by James Ferguson, 1757. Let me go back to my thing. Was that other one about James Ferguson? No, that's Henry Hodges Parker. That's something else. Okay, but James Ferguson. A quick bio on James Ferguson. Well, let's do the bio after the quote. James Ferguson, 1757. Of all the sciences cultivated by mankind, and this is Neil deGrasse Tyson. This is where I got this at the end of a not so professional discussion about something that's interesting to me, at least, and hopefully to you if you're listening. Of all the sciences cultivated by mankind, astronomy is acknowledged to be, and undoubtedly is, the most sublime, the most interesting, and the most useful. For, by knowledge derived from the science, not only the bulk of the earth is discovered, but our very faculties are enlarged with the grandeur of the ideas it conveys, our minds exalted above low contracted prejudices. James Ferguson. So, for myself, when I'm telling myself, well, what did I just read? It's something that anybody can take part in, and this is also something that is the basis of why I'm doing what I do. Because one, I'm just anybody, and like anybody, we can get involved with astronomy on really quite intensive levels without much. Okay, we're going on a break, and we'll come right back. That was a quick half hour. We're going to keep on going as soon as this break is over.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Narco-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us. Here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Enjoy your
extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another?
Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
trouble.
Come on.
My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey, we're back. Hey, everybody. It's Francis. I'm having a great time tonight talking about things in outer space. We're focusing down a little bit onto our interstellar traveler known as Oumuamua. Before we went on break, I was breaking down Neil deGrasse Tyson's appearance on the Jon Stewart show. No, Jon Stewart isn't around anymore. I don't know why I keep on saying that. And I described to you the discussion about Oumuamua. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the host of the show, played devil's advocate and said, well, isn't it a spaceship? And where did it come from? And didn't we discover it on its way out? And Neil deGrasse Tyson just answered the questions according to the information that had been laid out up to that point. As far as people like the host would know, and maybe the viewers of the host, well, I know that the viewers of the host are not necessarily like me, because I don't watch the show. I don't watch any of the nighttime shows. I don't find any of them very entertaining. So, what did it do for me? And I said I was researching. Whenever I research something, I always get a secondary research point. And at the end of the discussion, Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about a quote from James Ferguson. I did the quote right before the break. I'm going to say it one more time. Of all the sciences cultivated by mankind, astronomy is acknowledged to be and undoubtedly is the most sublime, the most interesting, and the most useful. 4, by knowledge derived from the science, not only the bulk of the earth is discovered, but our very faculties are enlarged with the grandeur of the ideas it conveys, our minds exalted above their low, contracted prejudices. James Ferguson, 1757. What it says is that if you think about outer space and in that way of that quote, you discover that mankind, for as much as we would like to think we are in control of our predetermined destiny, or are in a manifest destiny scenario for ourselves, or are in control of our environment and our universe, we should know by knowledge we've learned through science like astronomy that we are yet just specks of dust in the universal beach. The thing about James Ferguson was he was a layman that worked diligently on making inventions, and the inventions that he made improved the technologies that were available at that time, and his inventions invariably led to equipment involved with astronomy, and he became involved with astronomy, but he did it from the ground up. Again, citizens getting involved. My grand idea of the Citizen Space Force is coming to light. And at the same time, as we discuss more and more about what we have going on with this show, the Citizen Space Force, is there an opposing force right now? Are we on the precipice of a recognition of something that people are just breaking off bits and pieces? We're going to look into it. We're going to research that. I think before we keep going there, because it's really, ō'u-mu is going to be really focused on the last hour, and I keep on talking about it. I do have some things that went on other than ō'u-mu this week. We had a lot of, I don't know if you call them problems or deaths in the space mission family, but I don't know if you all heard. Good news and bad news that Hubble and Chandra are back on duty, which means they had to go offline first. Now they're back on duty. But Kepler and Dawn space missions are at the end. And normally these types of press releases are prefaced. You get a preface. Well, we've been expecting for the fuel to burn, and we were slowly putting it into hibernation. But a lot of these missions, these 4 missions, they just went offline, and some of them will come up online, and some of them are not coming back. And while I don't know why, I'm looking for answers. And I won't say why. We're just going to look at all the evidence. And then if I come to a reasonable understanding of all that evidence, I may just say what I think. But updated on October 30th, the day before Halloween, they say, as expected, NASA officially announced that the Kepler exoplanet mission is at an end. It ran out of fuel. They used like 3.5 gallons of fuel. And it's out of fuel, and can no longer be used to observe. It will be commanded to shut down shortly. It orbits the sun, not the Earth. It's like on the opposite side of the sun from Earth. It orbits in the direction of Earth, same as the Earth, but it's on the other side of the sun, if the graphic I looked at didn't deceive me. For a mission that found so many planets orbiting other stars, the official tally for the spacecraft as of today, Over its nearly 10-year mission, Kepler found 2,681 confirmed exoplanets. Now just planets. So far. And 2,899 candidates that await confirmation. It's not bad given when it launched, fewer than 500 were known, that being exoplanets, planets. It was an eye-opening mission, Kepler was. It showed that planets may outnumber stars in our galaxy, meaning there could be 1 trillion planets in our Milky Way alone. That may be fine, a fine legacy that it leaves behind. And we should all thank everyone involved in that mission. Another update on November 1st, another sad update. NASA just announced that the Dawn mission is now over too. See, they seem to be unexpected. As explained below, explain it, this was expected. But the news, I guess if you read it one way, it's not really unexpected. When they say it was expected, the spacecraft, that's Dawn, has been extremely low on fuel for some time. It missed a couple of scheduled communication downlinks, and it's clear that it's no longer able to point itself and must be out of hydrazine fuel for its thrusters. So Dawn can no longer talk to Earth or take science observation. It is orbiting Ceres, the protoplanet, in the main asteroid belt, and will stay in orbit likely for 50 years. It's not clear what will happen after that. NASA has protocols about contamination that disallow it from landing on Ceres, but I'd expect orbital shifts may include the possibility in a few decades The news is decidedly mixed when it comes to space-based astronomy this week. 2 major space observatories are back up and running after each had a scare, while 2 others look like they're about to see the end of their operational lives. The good news, part 1, is that Hubble Space Telescope, after stopping normal operations and putting itself into safe mode, it shut down non-critical systems, closed its aperture door, and oriented itself into a neutral position, which is great because those are the type of things that all telescopes do, even the ones here on Earth. They have a certain routine, a certain process. If they get through that process at the end of the night, you know that you could probably come back in another night and operate right from the last place you left it. Hubble does it because a gyroscope used to keep the telescope pointed at its targets died. So when its gyroscope died, it went into safe mode, closed its window, and it went into safe mode, and it went to a neutral position. Typically on Hubble, 3 gyros are used to keep the observatory locked onto its observing target. There are 6 on board, 3 used for operations and 3 turned off, held back in reserve in case they are eventually needed. 2 gyros died a few years back, leaving 3 operational and 1 in reserve. Now that one of the remaining operational ones has died, the one in reserve had to be drafted into use. But then when engineers turned it back on and spun it up, tests indicated it wasn't reporting its own behavior correctly, sending bad telemetry down to controllers. It was reporting its spin rate higher than it actually was. Can't really do good imaging when your pointer scope isn't pointing right. The good news is it's now working properly. The way they fixed it is really something. The equivalent of turning it off and back on, literally, while banging on the side of the telescope, figuratively. Well, that brings up pictures of Fonzie in a Wurlitzer music machine. Hey, only this was out in space, but actually it was in a mission control somewhere. It's kind of confusing, but that's technology these days. You can operate anything from your desk or from your phone. Well, not really. I found my phone cannot do everything. But I can use itelescope.net with my phone and program an imaging run from any telescope around the world. Australia, Spain, California, New Mexico. I think they have a new one opening up too. But it's amazing the things you can do. On your laptop, you can go to nightskiesnetwork.com and see what other amateur astronomers are looking at from around the world. People like Bob at Cosmic Obsession Observatory in Kerrville, cosmicobsession.com. You can find all these places on Facebook, itelescope.net, nightskiesnetwork.com, Cosmic Obsession Kerrville. You can find me, Francis Walsh. You can find Collision Course. You can find Citizen Space Force. You can find Dangerous News. You can even find a sale on Celestron telescopes right now, the SE Next Star SE series. There's a lot of stuff that we do. But back to here in the news, we're talking about Hubble being able to switch back and forth from gyros, bad ones to good ones. Fortunately, they had enough gyros that it came up back online. Hubble's back in operation. Basically, the command the observatory to do a series of maneuvers intended to dislodge anything blocking the components inside the gyro, each of which use a rapidly spinning cylinder inside a fluid. While doing this, they switched the gyro from one operational mode to another, literally making it spin faster and slower. It appeared to work as the reported rotation rate sent down to Earth returned to normal. Another series of tests were performed, which Hubble passed, so yay, normal operations have resumed. And in fact, Hubble began observing again on Saturday, October 27th. That was last week's show. They started taking pictures. The target for Hubble was an extremely distant galaxy in the constellation Pegasus called SAS LBG DSF 2237b-1-IR. Just so as you know, Hubble launched in 1990. It's nice to see it back on the job for sure. Next, part 2, good news. October 10th, the Chandra X-ray Observatory also went into safe mode, somewhat coincidentally. Coinkydinks. It was also caused by a malfunctioning gyro. Coinkydink 2. I say somewhat because gyros, being not only moving parts, but ones that spin at high speeds, tend to fail after a few years. There's an onboard computer that determines the spacecraft's momentum. That is, how quickly it moves from target to target. And a glitch in the gyro caused bad info to be sent to that computer. It fed that bad data into its software and calculated an anomalous motion for the observatory and freaked out. That's what triggered Chandra to go into safe mode. That gyro was put in reserve, and one that was already in reserve was fired up. Unlike with Hubble, this one appears to have started up just fine. On October 21st, science observations started up once again, and the 19-year-old spacecraft, it launched in 1999, is also back on the job. And so, what's left is some bad news. The Kepler spacecraft may be dead. We talked about that in a minute. Over 2,300 confirmed exoplanets, they put it to sleep. Dawn mission is on its last leg too. They tried to keep the mission going, but once it's out of fuel, that's that. So, welcome back, Chandra and Hubble, and see you later, Kepler and Dawn. All of which did appear to have some issues at or about the same time. Now, the only way any relevance can be ascertained from that information is if we build upon the evidence. Right? That's what good observers do. They build upon their evidence. All right, we got to get rid of that. Another bit about another space mission. Another bit on space mission. Then Oumuamua. After this next break, for the last whole hour, we're going to talk about what the heck is going on. But if you didn't know it, our Parker Solar Probe starts first solar encounter. They launched the Parker Solar Probe, the first solar probe ever sent to the sun, just recently. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't tell you the exact day it went, but we'll go with this information. That on October 31st, on Halloween 2018, the solar probe began its first of 24 solar encounters. This period, and those encounters range in distance from the solar surface, some being farther out and some being very, very close. Now, we may be talking about it going by the sun already and now, but my understanding is the pass that occurs in 2024 will be the closest, but I may be wrong. But that's what I've heard so far. But the Parker Solar Probe began the first of 24 solar encounters. This period, which lasts until November 11th, it is the time during which the spacecraft is within 0.25 astronomical units or 23.2 million miles of the sun's center. Parker Solar Probe's 4 suites of science instruments are on and collecting data throughout this phase, giving scientists their closest yet look at this dynamic region of the sun's outer atmosphere. It's most interested in the corona. This solar encounter encompasses the first perihelion of the mission, the point at which Parker Solar Probe is closest to the sun. And again, that's just in this orbit. It gets closer. And other orbits. This one, it just happens to be perihelion for this one. It is expected to occur at about 10:28 p.m. Eastern Time on November 5th. The spacecraft will come within 15 million miles of the sun's surface and clock in at a top speed of 213,200 miles per hour relative to the sun, setting new records for both closest solar approach and top heliocentric speed by a spacecraft. At perihelion, Parker Solar Probe will fly through material at about 3.6 million degrees in Fahrenheit. That makes me pause. But because material in this region is so tenuous, it doesn't influence the temperature of the spacecraft. However, the sun's intense radiation heats the sun facing side of the spacecraft's heat shield, called the thermal protection system, at about 820 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to have to learn more about that process, because it just seems like you go 3.6 million degrees to 800 degrees. That's an amazing chill. For several days around November 5th, perihelion, Parker Solar Probe will be completely out of contact with Earth. Because of interference from the sun's overwhelming radio emissions. Parker Solar Probe employs a host of autonomous systems to keep the spacecraft safe without guidance from Earth, including automatic retraction of the solar panels to regulate their temperature, attitude control using solar limb sensors, and a sophisticated guidance and control system that keeps the spacecraft pointed correctly. This autonomy is key not only during no-contact phases around the 24 planned perihelia, but also throughout the mission, when the round-trip light time, the time it takes for radio signals to go back and forth between Earth and the Parker Solar Probe, can be up to 31 minutes. During the solar encounter phase, Parker Solar Probe's 4 instrument suites measure the properties of material directly within the sun's outer atmosphere. These observations, gathered closer to the sun than ever before, will help scientists begin to answer outstanding questions about the sun's fundamental physics. You see, they still don't understand the fundamental physics of the sun. And we're going on break, and we'll be right back.
Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week.
Yes.
But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting.
Yes, I see.
By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs.
Be quiet.
But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more...
Be quiet.
I order you to be quiet.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound. I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible.
You're a loony.
The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us. Here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Enjoy your
extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another?
Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
trouble.
trouble.
Come on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What are we doing live? It goes in eternity.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free, but there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey everybody, it's Francis. Wake up. This is episode 6 of Collision Course on Revolution Radio, revolution.radio, Studio B, every Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. in New York City. If you didn't know, revolution.radio is a listener-supported radio station of free speech. If you care about free speech, then you should care about stations like revolution.radio. If you care about shows like Collision Course, you should care about revolution.radio. If you do, and if you're able, find a donate button, support the cause here at revolution.radio. It's a great resource. There's tens upon hundreds of good shows. They have archives you can go to and listen to all the archive shows. Studio A and Studio B are both offering great shows and content for you to come and listen to. The chat room always has many viable people there communicating about the shows. Guests, hosts, topics are covered there. But for now, we're going to move on because I told you that the last hour is going to be all about Oumuamua. You may have said, Francis, we talked about Oumuamua over a course of a couple of the shows. What more could there be? I'm going to start right off the top, okay, because I find this to be the most, or one of the glaring aspects of the way this object is being proposed to us, the viewer, the listener, the common man, the layman, the person who's not a part of the inner group, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who he's the communication with the late night host. So, ever since first reaching out to Karen Meach, who is a part of the research of Oumuamua right from the beginning, she plays a part in the Planetary Society there in Hawaii. She was there with Oumuamua when the discovery was first made. She was one of the first people contacted about it back in October 16th of 2017. It wasn't until October 19th of 2017 that they were able to describe an orbit for this object that at this point had already passed Earth, because when they plotted the orbit according to the number of observations, they discovered something totally out of the ordinary, so much that they had to term this object as one being an interstellar traveler. When we think about interstellar travelers, we may think about our own spacecraft Voyager 1 and 2, which we've sent out to the farthest reaches of the edges of our solar system. And once they get outside the heliosphere and heliopause of the sun, they reach the outer edges of our solar system and enter into the inner space medium and become interstellar travelers. The information on the plotting of the orbit of this object back in October 16th of 2017 made it so that it came from a location originating from outside our solar system. And immediately people were put at work to discover what it was made of, whether what its composition was, what its physical features were, whether it was sending off radio waves, so they listened to it, they observed it, and they began to create orbital paths for it, plotting that orbital path. They could tell where it was coming from according to its speed, so they could gauge speed through observations. They could gauge plots of an orbit through observations. That orbit would increase through calculation, both forward and back, so they knew where it was heading, and they were getting to where it was coming from. And they released the information as such. This is the first time we've discovered an interstellar traveler. The first time I heard of a name, I heard the name Oumuamua. So when it was reported and I heard it first, it was already named Oumuamua, but consequently it had a previous name. It was named Rama. And I have information about Rama, but whenever I hear that, why was it named twice? What would the first name mean? I went and looked up the first name, but we're going to get to Oumuamua. So, the object was discovered, interstellar traveler. They're plotting an orbit. They're looking at it. They're gauging speed. Besides being unique and being a interstellar traveler determined by its orbit, they release information of its physical attributes, which gave it the physical attributes of an elongated object, i.e. cigar shape. But let's not think of it as a cigar, because a cigar is cylindrical. This may be an elongated shape that is flat like a frying pan, and that it's important to look at it that way. So when we say it's elongated and it looks like a cigar, maybe if you're looking at it straight from the edge, but we have to think about it like this, with an edge but like a frying pan without the edges, just like a plate. Let's think of it as a plate. And when you look at the plate from the side, if it's a flat plate, you'll see a cigar shape. But as you look at it from a different perspective, you'll see that it gains surface area both above and beneath. Okay, important. So they release what it was. They start releasing orbit information. They release what it looks like, and then they start releasing their observations as far as, is it bright? Is it dim? What it might be made of? Is there any radio transmissions? The radio transmission report came back negative. It was not emitting any radio transmissions. What was it composed of? It was composed of probably something in the line of the color dark red charcoal because of its reflectivity. Now, I did read in one article where the article stated that it was actually a little bit more reflective than just ash or charcoal. But then when I asked Karen Meach, she said, well, not necessarily. It's all it's dependent on its brightest. It's all dependent upon its brightest return. And being that it has motion besides its orbit, that they may not be measuring it at its complete brightness, and that's kind of irrelevant. So cylindrical or elongated, I'm adding in the elongation flat plate, and we have interstellar traveler, where it's coming from, where it's going. They can't hear it, they can't see it. Okay, so I went right into the name, Oumuamua. Many of us, I don't know if anybody has ever heard a name like Oumuamua, unless you're from Hawaii and you hear Hawaiians speaking Hawaiian. That probably sounds a lot more familiar to you in a name than someone who's not from Hawaii and who doesn't hear Hawaiian being spoke very much. Oumuamua is a unique, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 11 in unique. So I know that every time they say they being the scientists who are involved, and including the Karen Meach, who I interviewed, Oumuamua is normally pre to a description of what it means. And so when the scientists are describing what Oumuamua means in Hawaiian, normally in some format it comes back, a distant traveler from the past coming by to say hello. Something to that effect. Something very innocuous. Distant traveler from or a traveler from the distant past coming by to say hello. And it didn't play right for me. I said, if that, I finally got to the point, I said, if that's what it means, then I need to look that up. I'm going to go look it up. And I don't know how many people went and looked it up. And if you did, and then you already know what I'm going to say. And I'm going to go back to, because I want to make sure I have the website right and everything. And I don't have it right up, so I'm going to have to type it. Just give me a second. I'm going to type translation. I'm just going to do it into Google. And now, first page of all the translations are what science is saying. And we'll go. Oumuamua from Wikipedia. I don't want to click in there, so I'm not going to say it. I'm just looking at these drop downs. And I did put in translation. Not one of them in their thing actually gives what the meaning is. But link number 7 or so. There's a website that Ulukau. ulukau.org is the Hawaiian Electronic Library, a dictionary of the Hawaiian language as revised by Henry H. Parker. Henry H. Parker was a Hawaiian priest for a parish for a very long time. I don't have them pulled up. Oh, maybe I do have it pulled up. Henry Hodges Parker. Henry Hodges Parker, March 2nd, 1834 to September 7th, 1927, was the 4th Kau pastor for Kauaiahau Church in Honolulu. He served in that position 54 years, the longest of any Kau in its history. Fluent in the Hawaiian language, he was a friend and pastor to native Hawaiians, which included several decades of the Hawaiian monarchy. So this page, this Ulukau, the Hawaiian Electronic Library, produced a dictionary of the Hawaiian language revised by Henry H. Parker, who had multiple years working with the Hawaiian royal family, has as the translation for Oumuamua as Mua, the front. 1, the foremost soldier or the front rank in battle. I can't make this up, and I don't know if you already heard it all, but this lights me up when I read this kind of stuff, and I know that I'm being told something else. So, and it has a 2, a scout. 1 sent forward before a battle to discover the position of the enemy. Why are we naming this object that? When I found it, I was like, and on top of that, since I've discovered it and I found that, and I may have already said it before, I haven't heard anybody bring it up. I could be wrong. And if I am, that might just be because I put a whole lot of hours in at work over the week, and that it takes me away from the things I love, like digging up these great stories. And this story for right now, as we're talking about this interstellar traveler, is Oumuamua, as it's described by scientists, is the traveler from a distant past coming to say hello. And the person, Henry Hodges Parker, who would know best, way back since the 1834 to 1927s about Hawaiian language, and he dictated a dictionary of the Hawaiian language, considers that ō'u-mu means that it's the foremost soldier in the front rank of battle, or a scout, one sent before a battle to discover the position of the enemy. Now, a scout, I've seen the scientists say a scout, but they don't finish the sentence. And to me, it's important. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I just put that information out there, and I'm going to continue stacking up information because I seriously feel that a lot of this information is pointing in a direction that may be very unexpected or expected, maybe wanted or very unwanted. My personal beliefs my personal belief is that more than likely, with a 90% chance, there's probably some sort of some sort of alien presence on Earth. I don't really see why some of these reports can be totally made up or totally false. So that has to mean that there's something involved in some of these activities, whether it be Medvedev from Russia telling a reporter that if he were to tell her how many aliens were on the planet, it would drive the world into a panic, or it's a U.S. Air Force jet following an unexplained phenomenon flying somewhere near their airspace. I have to admit to myself that there may be some sort of alien goings on here right on Earth. But that doesn't have to mean, and this is what I'm getting to, that doesn't have to mean that what's here on Earth has anything to do with what may be coming from outside of our solar system. We may have ancient biology in this solar system that has seen its day of life and is not as prominent now, and in essence is quite alien to what we are today. But that has nothing to do with an alien presence coming from outside. Okay, so we described. We have an interstellar traveler. We described what it looks like, that we don't hear anything, what its shape is. Okay, I have to describe what it does as it's moving. So Oumuamua has an orbit, and it's called a hyperbolic orbit. And now hyperbolic, I asked the question with Miss Meach, and my point of view should hold up, but it falls apart, and I'll tell you why. Miss Meach says that this object is rare even more because of its hyperbolic orbit. Hyperbolic orbit, and that was something that Neil deGrasse Tyson made fun of too. Him and the night show host, they somehow degraded a hyperbolic orbit by putting a funny name on it or something. But hyperbolic orbits are important because they're orbits that bring objects into the solar system and around the sun and out again, never to return. An orbit around the sun, circular to egg shape, just disregarding how it orbits, flat or inclined. An orbit is egg-shaped or circular, Now, if you have an orbit that comes into the sun and is very V, that angle that it takes can determine that there's no way at the farthest reaches of that orbit can it ever come back to where it started, that causing it to be hyperbolic. That meaning that it's going to travel through different space for the entirety of its time in the universe. As an object, as an object, even as pieces of an object, it's going to continue going in new grounds forever and ever and ever, if that was its destiny. But the way it moves, so it has the orbit. Now, you might think that things in space, well, you probably already know that it's easy to get things spinning in space. Now, when somebody thinks about something spinning, they may be thinking about it spinning in a tight circular motion. Oumuamua is spinning as it moves in its orbit. I want to call it a tumbling, but as Karen Meach describes it, it tumbles on all axes. So let's just think like one solid line or this plate, and it tumbles in an X pattern. It's just rolling, and then it's tilted one way as it rolls that time, and it comes back, and then it tilts the other way, and then that time, and it's just in a pattern of rolling and moving through space. Okay, and it's moving away. Well, as the scientists and observers were tracking the object as it's moving away, they discovered that it was moving faster than it should have, that it was moving faster than gravitation would dictate. Now, as an object comes into the sun, it gathers speed by the gravity. If we were to go with the gravitational model of the universe, an object coming in an orbit around the sun gains speed as the sun pulls it in gravitationally, and then as it leaves its way away from the sun, farther and farther away, it will slow it down because it no longer gets the pull or the push of the sun, which gave it its increased speed. It'll slow down to its regular orbital speed, and that is a speed that it will maintain. Well, observing the object, Oumuamua, the scientists have discovered that it's come up with an unexplainable speed increase. It's increasing in speed rather than slowing down. And therein lies some more information which creates science to do more research into why. Why does it look this way? Why does it sound that way? Why did it come in from out there? Where did it come from? Where is it going? So just recently, we have been described a proposed, well, not so much. Two gentlemen have hypothesized that considering the flight motion of this flat planular on a plane object tumbling in its orbital position as it is, it's acting much like a solar sail would. And so now we may not know much about what solar sails are. We may have heard, I think I've heard in my history a few or four times, some scientist or science report talking about potentials for solar sails, but there's actually been a couple of programs that have tested the workings and potential advantages of propelling a spacecraft using a solar sail. The photons of light are particles that when they come to a surface like one that would be created for the solar sail, and it's literally a sail, there's four triangles that expand and create a square, and so that solar sail will be facing the sun or any star. And when it's in that star's heliosphere, it can be directionally propulsed according to the direction of the space weather or the photons being ejected from the star's surface. So I'm thinking to myself, things are just, either getting really haywire or things are adding up. We have a lot of equipment and machinery and missions that are going down and coming up. And I'm not proposing I know anything about anything, because I surely only know as much as I've researched. And I know only as much information that I trust. I only know as much information as I trust. I may consume a large amount of information, but I may only take out of it a small amount to which I trust. And so it's hard, it's really hard as for anybody to look at the situation and then come up with, you know, a pile of the evidence and say, well, this does look very unique. This does look like there may be some covering up of the translation, because I don't really think there's a cover up. I haven't heard one thing or the other, and I haven't heard anybody try to cover up the cover. You know, normally when there's a cover up, it's like it comes out, and then somebody says, "Well, no." Then, you know, they pull a Tyson. They Tyson the news, and they're like, no. And then everybody believes him because everybody believes the information because they look to these people as their number one source of information. But remember, your number one source of information is that source of information where you have to take the least amount of news from. Why? Because you take in the most amount of news from them. So be sure, even in space, you have to disseminate. You're going to learn what's going on. When somebody tells you something that you're not sure about, you have to go out there and look. Somebody tells you there's brown dwarf star coming in our direction, we have to go out and look. And we're looking. We've been told. But that object for that spot, unfortunately, is quite close to the sun right now, so can't go out there and look. Going to have to wait a little bit, and then we can look. Okay, we got one more half an hour to talk about what's left of the Oumuamua. There's a lot more left to go, so keep on coming back.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Schneider will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey everyone, it's Francis. Collision Course, Episode 6, Season 2, Revolution.Radio, Studio B, 6 to 8 p.m. every Saturday night in New York City. Wherever you are, come to the show. Listen. Find something you like and come back again. We were talking before the break about something really important, about my views on all this information coming in about Oumuamua. There's too much interesting news to find it plain Jane object on its way in, on its way out. So I was talking about what my beliefs were. Maybe there's alien presence here on Earth, but I believe if there is, there may not be no connection to any alien presence outside our atmosphere. So what would that mean if you were a person who believed like I do that this object is definitely going to lead to more press releases, and that if so, what can we do outside of waiting for the next press release to play a part in this process? Well, as we described in the translation of the name, it being a scout, the foremost runner of basically an attacking force, an enemy, then we might expect others. And if we expect others, where might those come from? And if they're coming on the heels of this one, then one might want to point telescopes in that direction, and they already are. Now, I don't know if it's under the guise, because it was a big thing about, well, where did Oumuamua come from? This was another odd object, another odd informational outputting, or them putting out information about an object that I never really connected with an object before. Normally we're talking about objects and they have orbits, and some of these have very large orbits. Now, they may not be interstellar, but nowhere has science, in my remembering, have they started putting out information about where did an object come from. We know where it is. It may have a very large orbit. Where does it come from? Except for Oumuamua. After we got by all this recognition of it had come in, it had come past, they were able to observe it for as long as they could because it quickly got too dim. The magnitude got too high. I took my silly butt out there to try to take a picture of it, and I wasn't paying attention when I was getting my data. I can go out and get coordinates for that object at any time because they've figured out the orbit, and the orbit will go out many, many years, and it will go back many, many years. But in that data that they give you, if you're going to look for its coordinates on a certain time, it'll tell you what its brightness is. And I never looked. So I went and attempted to go recover Oumuamua with a telescope, only to find out through an email with Karen Meach that it was just totally too dim at magnitude 31, extremely dim, too dim to be seen by telescopes of any kind, from what my understanding was with the discussion I had with her. But I did attempt. I do have pictures of space where if it was brighter, it would have shown up. So this discussion about where it came from piques my interest because there's obviously of great interest, which means there's tens upon tens of people just spending time reviewing images of a portion of space where once Oumuamua came. Will Oumuamua play out on a grand scale past this? When is the time scale? We really don't, I guess, have a time scale. We can have all this information, the translation of its name. Again, the name is so strange to me. And then once you find out the translation, and once you find out that the people that you're dealing with, they even said that when they went to go give it a name, because they felt that because the telescope that discovered it was based in Hawaii, that it should have a Hawaiian name. After they named it Ramo, they changed it to Hawaiian. They went in and they went and got the advice of a Hawaiian linguist and a Hawaiian anthropologist. I think it was anthropology. I might be wrong on that one, but definitely on a linguist. So that means that these are people that definitely knew what it meant. So there must have been some communication between that linguist and that scientist that said, yes, here's a good name. This is what it means directly, but you might propose you present that name in this way as a traveler from a distant past coming by to say hello. Go as far as say scout, but just don't describe what that scout has planned. So I truly believe that there will be more information that comes out from Oumuamua, and in the aspects of what we would consider to be relevant in a alien connection will probably not be anything like what we might imagine being humans sitting on here on Earth. Now, we've seen plenty sci-fi stories and sci-fi movies, and I'm sure each of us, when we think about aliens, go to a specific type of description. Maybe it's one like you've seen in a movie, maybe one like you've created for yourself in your mind. I have the feeling in my mind there's so many different variations that it would be totally unexpected, and I don't even know if we could describe what could happen in an alien presence. So after I've said this, basically laid forth what's going on with Oumuamua. I've laid forth the information as best I can. The latest information is that this object, as it passed by, and as it's been inspected and observed, that during its passing by, it could very much represent or be representative of the type of object and size and orbit and the way it orbits to match the actions of solar sails, which have already been tested and proven to work. And the reason why we say this, because again, it was picking up speed after it passed the sun. An object's speed will increase as it's coming into a sun, to a solar mass, and then after it's gone by and on its orbit, it will decrease speed till it reaches its natural gravitational orbital speed. But Oumuamua didn't. It picked up speed. If it's picking up speed, there must be a reason. The reason now may be described as being this object is much like a solar sail in the way that it tumbles and moves in its orbit. It's actually using the particles that are emitted by the solar star, and it is used to propel it. Now, there are some things that people will say, well, we didn't hear anything. We listened to it on the radio and we didn't hear anything. Well, I tell myself a little bit like if I was wanting to fly by on the down low, I think it would be radio silent. So you can chuck that one up. There's a good chance that if something's trying to fly by unnoticed, it's going to be silent. Okay, I remember I read in the article earlier today, in reporting that it was moving like a solar sail, they included the notion that it was an old destroyed alien ship that the sail had come apart from. Okay, so they're talking about the movement of the object and the frame or the reference of a solar sail, but they have to include this extra information about it being a spacecraft that is destroyed. So that would immediately put our mind in a safe mode. Oh, it's destroyed. And so that we can learn about the sail. But that doesn't necessarily have to hold true, because the sail could actually, probably could contain the vessel itself. You could probably turn a vessel into, you wouldn't much need a separate body. If the sail flies, you just get on the sail and fly. It's a lot to think about, and it has been a lot to think about, but not too much. It's the perfect kind of stuff that I like to talk about. And as long as interesting news comes in from outer space, we'll always have something to talk about. We do have to presume and make presumptions on the information that we gathered, though. And so I'm gathering with this object, there's a lot of anomalies from top to bottom, from observations to its name, to its motion, to its orbit, to its speed. And now what's most important to me is, where did it come from? And is there a way to take looks into those areas of where it came from, so that if there is a follow-up, that we might be able to observe that prior to it getting here? Again, we didn't discover it until it was past Earth. If there's something going to follow this up, we should surely, and I don't doubt, I have faith in the astronomical world, both amateurs and professionals, that at all times there are a high number of telescopes pointed at the night sky. Wherever there's clear, dark skies, there are telescopes pointed out there. Those telescopes, though we may not know right now who is operating them or where they are located, you can be rest assured that if one of those telescopes makes a discovery, and it's an important discovery, the information will come back to us. We are not relegated to the information doled out by NASA or whatever other space agency, though I want to say that those space agencies like ESA, the European Space Agency, I really like them because they're very they have great content, they have great missions. Roscosmos, I don't I don't see a lot of information on them. I'm not sure if they have great output of data. NASA's information, we know NASA's it's not what it used to be. Until NASA gets a regular flight program going again, I think NASA, there's plans in order for NASA to get back to work. Here's an interesting note. While we may always have at times between countries geopolitically, between the United States and Russia, while there have always been never a perfect union politically, it seems that every time something to do with space and outer space comes up, the two countries find a way to connect and work together. Now, we all know America's been having to pay the price to send its astronauts up into space, but if you think about it, is Russia really required to take our astronauts up into space? No, they're not. And if they got some sanctions against them that they didn't like, I wouldn't see why any relevant government wouldn't just say, this is a privilege, and you just don't get this kind of free ride. But what I'm leading to is, it seems the superpowers have always worked together in space. And I've seen information recently that makes me believe that there may be a reason why they are always working together out in space. Now, I don't know why right now it seems like governmental space agencies are having a hard time. We know that there's a crew up in the ISS who may be there a little bit longer than because one of the Soyuz capsules has a hole in it. We know that Roscosmos had a failed launch where the astronauts had to have a ballistic reentry. One can only imagine what that is. I've seen some videos of the failure of the booster rocket, and they were up pretty high and they were moving really fast. So I guess it's just like getting shot up like a bullet as high as you can go and coming back down. But we haven't been having a lot of success at the current moment. So there's more information that leads people to believe that there's information that we need to know as reasons why things like this are occurring. After all my research, I can see things getting turned off and turned back on. We see that the space missions are getting turned off. We see that these things are going. So because we're not getting reasons, an independent reason that covers everything, we get all these individual reasons that are supposed to cover everything individually, but that's breaks up the information so much that it's not useful to us. It's only explains to what happened here, what happened here, what happened here, but they probably have an overlaying thing. So did we let an alien scout fly by us? Did we witness something that we had never witnessed before? Was something witnessing us? We still don't know. All we can do is research very hard and very deep so that when we talk about these topics that we have a grasp of, the underlying story. The underlying story of the talking heads being very flippant about a subject. The underlying story that the scientists aren't 100% faithful on their scientific descriptions. Because again, scientists are like engineers, are like mathematicians. They all run in a circle where they all are supposed to explain themselves to a nth degree of certainty because they use factual processes to obtain their results. So whenever I see science slipping through the cracks on something as simple as an actual translation, it raises red flags to me. Makes me believe that there's more to be said about the whole event. Oumuamua in an hour came into our solar system. We didn't see it until it got past Earth. Science created the orbit where it came from, where it was going, determine it was an interstellar traveler, determine what it looked like, determine no sound, determine that it was increasing speed. Now there's scientific academia trying to find reasons that would describe why the speed increased. People like me do research digs and find out that translations are bad. You go deeper into science and astronomy missions that are currently having a hard time staying active and up to date. People want to point to certain scenarios. You know, I don't believe anything occurred on the sun. I think the solar observatories are a dead call. I don't think anything on the sun is occurring because there's still eyes on the sun. There's still Helios and SDO. Or Soho was one of them. Whenever they were talking about the sun being out of view, I was able to go see it. These telescopes now, gyroscopes. Now two of them a bunch of them went down. Hubble and Chandra went down because of gyroscopes. They were both able to switch over to new gyroscopes. Gyroscopes spin in a liquid. I'm just talking out loud. So you have a similar problem. You have shutdowns around the same time. You have a similar operational mechanical unit that breaks down at the same time. I'd have to look back and maybe discover where the orbits were of the two objects, how close they were. Could they be? Because, it's almost like you're looking for a perturber. Are we looking for another planet? And that's a whole other discussion. We'll talk about that in another week or so. Was there something that perturbed these missions? Not so much that the mission control shut them down or just said they went down or just giving us a story, but something actually caused the same mechanical type unit mechanism to fail, gyros. And we'll look into that for another show. Then we have the two missions that just go down, both because of fuel, I think. So we have 4 missions that share two similarities. Now, when I read the news releases, it seemed like they were, unexpected shutdowns, but then they always said that they were expected. So, and then again, is there a perturber? Where are these missions? Must be far apart. I'm not even going to say or come close to thinking that all these missions share something in space. So I will try to find out for our upcoming show if they shared any similarities in space. If there could have been a perturber in our midst. And so we're going to save up. Oumuamua is strange. You should know about it. For all the reasons that I said, I think they're quality reasons. If we just took the information as it's spoon-fed to us, we're just going to be spoon-fed individuals, and we're not going to do that. Why is that important? Is because the battle is not on this or that or whatever stereotypical reason you can find. The battle is always going to be about individuality and your ability to be an individual. So that's something I like to practice. Doing these radio shows and having topics to talk about puts that notion into practice. Being an individual is what's at stake here. Believe it or not, it's not about all those other things. It's about you being you and your ability or your right or your ability to be you without being overregulated while you be you. And for me, I like to be unregulated when I look outer space and I read outer space news and I take outer space into my own hands when I use technology, like I spoke about. So I'm going to end this show over the next minute or so by saying good night. Bob at CosmicObsession.com, Cosmic Obsession Kerrville. Good night, Joe at NightSkiesNetwork.com. Good night, Pete at iTelescope.net. Good night, Jessica. Good night, Stone. Good night, Jorge. Good night, John, Robin, Bob, Debbie, all my friends. We'll see you next week.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in